Gur má go a leat ceann comhairle agus tá anátha sorann PVP agus AA takeíocht do thuairt don bille seo mar gheall priváideach an uisce. I think it's a very good bill. I think it's essential, and I think it flows naturally from the mass movement we have seen over the last few years in response to water and water charges as conducted by the previous government and this government. I think it will be passed. My understanding is that Fianna Fáil and Labour are going to support it, and I heard positive mutterings from the Minister earlier on, so I think there's a very good chance that this will be passed and is very good. In 2013, at the launch of the Right to Water campaign, we invited speakers over from France and Germany, citizens who were members of citizens' movements who were, at the time, in the case of Germany, struggling to invoke the remunicipalisation of the water services in Hamburg and Munich. And at that time, French citizens who had achieved the remunicipalisation of water in Paris. And it's a very, very fundamental issue for any society to be able to control not just the provision of water, but the management of water and the supply of water. Fundamental because, as has been said many, many times, one can live without food for many, many days. You won't survive for very long without water. So it's absolutely central to life. We're made up more than 90% of every living being, us and animals and everything else, more than 90% on average of any living organism is made of water. But it is impacted hugely on by climate change and by the sort of abuse of the planet that industrialisation and so-called civilisation has been wreaking on the planet. So it's an issue that I think should be combined with a bigger environmental approach to how we deal with our natural resources. But the attempt to stop it being privatised is absolutely crucial, because we have seen in other countries, including Britain next door to us, when Margaret Thatcher privatised the supply of water way back when in the 80s, there were outbreaks of serious illnesses across Yorkshire, on the outskirts of London, and indeed TB was rampant in South Africa when they privatised the water supply there. So although we've had cryptosporidium outbreaks and other poisons going through water supplies in this country, it is clear that that becomes a much greater and intractable problem when private hands are dealing with the question of the provision of water. I just want to read something that, and not to open old wounds, but I do think it's important, the make-up of the Commission on Water Charges that's looking at how we pay for all this, because it contains a lot of prominent individuals from the private companies of water in different parts of the world, including Bill Emery, a director of Ofwat, which is presiding over a privatised water system. And I think it's a real tragedy and a real irony and a real shame that there isn't a single representative of the Right to Water movement sitting on that commission, a movement that has seen hundreds of thousands of people many, many times marching, protesting and organising at a local level against the water charges and against the privatisation of water, and a movement that has seen the vast majority of the population engaged, probably in the biggest boycott since the landlord was effectively put the word into the English language in the 18th century. So it is a real shame that we are not represented properly under the Water Commission. This is a beginning. We have a bit to go, because we get this passed and it's great. It will be a constitutional referendum. But it is the beginning of the ongoing fight to retain public services in public hand, and far from it being the end of the story, it may well only be the beginning. We do not want our water service in the hands of vulture global corporations. It belongs to the people, and we would hope that the model that the Irish people would bring in could spread throughout the globe and be adapted by other societies.